know her well. So I'm going to present to you guys about concussions, what we need to know at the end here. And I preface this by saying we're not asking you guys to be medical providers, but at the same time we're asking everybody in the district to understand and recognize concussion stuff so we can get it taken care of. It's a very hot button topic and parents know all about it. That being said, we have to be proactive in terms of taking care of it. So this is just a kind of an overview of what it is. I work for Dr. Scott Bilyeu at St. Mary's Hospital. I provide all sorts of resources in terms of concussion. In fact, you probably heard me talking a little bit about it in the back there. But this is kind of what we do. Policy is the big thing. That's changed, and that's why I'm here. Here's our overview. We're going to do some myths of concussions, the signs and symptoms of concussions, how we notify and refer, or how we would like to. Return to learn, which is new, and return to play. I say return to learn is new. I keep saying it's new, so I keep thinking to myself it's not new, but it is. It's only about a year old that we've been doing something like this. I've been doing it at school districts for about 5 years now. So what is a concussion? This is the biggest issue. If you look up definition of concussion in medical literature, you can find over 40 different definitions. So if it's confusing to the medical literature, how would it not be confusing to the rest of us, right? So I tried to boil it down. I spend way too much time on concussion research and everything else because I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to this stuff. But concussion is a traumatic brain injury that occurs when a blow or jolt to the head or the body disrupts normal functioning of the brain. Even more simply put, disruption of normal brain activity after any sort of traumatic event. Okay? So, is it normal for me to fall asleep right here, right now? That's not normal, right? If I were to be hit and fall asleep right now, would that be a concussion? Absolutely would, because it's a disruption of normal brain activity. Is it normal for me to be standing here with a headache right now? No, it is not. If I were to be hit in the leg, my head were to whip around, all of a sudden I have a headache, now that's a concussion because now that is not normal brain function. It's really simple if you boil it down. Does that make sense to everybody? So it's different for different things. Now, being at McGoy School, it's even more different because now we're dealing with a patient population that has a difficult time of explaining what's going on to themselves, right? So, I mean, we've all had kids and we've worked here forever. If Sally gets her finger pinched in here, she may be screaming and hollering and saying it's the worst pain she's ever felt in her life. Whereas Johnny may have fallen down and broke his arm and be like, ah, look, my arm broke, right? I mean, kids are different at this age, so it's tough to quantify all this. That being said, this is what we need to know. Here are some myths. You do not have to be knocked out to have a concussion. However, if you are knocked out, you've had a concussion. Okay? We don't play through the pain anymore. We don't even go to school through the pain. Well, I can't say that. That's changed too. We used to say you don't even go to school through the pain. Now we kind of push through recovery a little bit of the pain. Concussion is no longer a minor injury, considered a minor injury. It used to be, back when I started as an athletic trainer, if I were on the sidelines of a game and somebody got rocked and they kind of wobbled over to me to the sideline and they said, hey, I'm hurt, my head's ringing, I'd say, sit down. I'd walk away for 15 minutes, come over and say, hey, how you doing? Oh, I feel great. All right, you can go right back in the game. That's how it was. I mean, that's what we were taught. I mean, that's how silly it is now. Now that same kid happens today, guess what? You're out of the game, where's mom and dad? We'll try and get you home, we'll see a doctor tomorrow or the day after. I mean, it's not even an emergency room anymore, it's just kind of moved on. Not everybody gets better in 2 weeks. This is particularly, can't even say that word, this is most evident in females. Females do not recover in 2 weeks, especially has something to do with their menstrual period, which you guys don't have to worry about here. But as you get older and you have older children and stuff like that, you need to understand that recovery is completely dependent on many different things. The hard part is, especially kids at this age, is that they can't see that they're hurt, and their friends can't see that they're hurt. Are they really hurt? I mean, that's even a problem at the high school level. If I can't see that they're hurt, and they can't see they're hurt, and Snapchat can't see that they're hurt, are they really hurt? I mean, seriously, think about that. Think about that technology today and what we talk about, so we have to deal with that. So, even though you can't see it, you are hurt. This is what we do for care, for concussions. We're finding out that immediate care, proper care, and immediate care for concussions is resulting in great outcomes. We're not having long-term effects. I'm sure you've seen the news, been around sports, you hear stuff called CTE, dementia, all that stuff. They're blaming it on football and all those other things. Well, you know what? That might be part of it, and that might be the impetus for it. But a lot of the problem is not actually the injury; it's actually the mismanagement of the injury. It's not allowing it to heal. Okay. So if we take care of things correctly and properly, we tend to not have any problems. That's why it's so important to intervene as soon as possible, even at this age, to get stuff done. Adolescents are completely higher on the priority spectrum because adolescents and youth, because our brains don't stop developing until when? Does anybody know? You want to take a guess when our brains actually stop developing? You think what? Think about what? 18, 19, right? No, 25, 30, in some cases 40. Brains don't stop developing until then.
Not 30.
This is the worst case scenario. We bring this up because this is kind of to reel you in after I give you some boring talk about what's going on, but this is why we're going to do what we're going to do. It's called second impact syndrome. It will kill in most 65% of the cases. And what it is that if you have a concussion or a traumatic brain injury, and then you sustain a second one soon thereafter without it recovering, you get something called second impact syndrome. There has been this many cases in adults over 18. None. Never has it occurred in an adult. Ever. This only occurs in adolescence and youth. So, this is important why we know and recognize and get people out and get people taken care of as much as possible. Morbidity rate, meaning somehow a morbidity rate is something permanently affected down the road, 95% of the time. So we don't want this. We want to avoid this. I use this example also to reel everybody in, especially at the grade school level and the younger level. 5-year-old kid got hit in the head with a bat. This is in Minnesota in 2010. Got hit in the head in the bat practice, t-ball practice, no big deal. Mom and dad thought no big deal. Everybody thought no big deal, right? Kid gets hit in the head, headache, go home, whatever. This is a while back. We didn't think a whole lot. I mean, it's only 5, 6, 7 years ago. We don't think a lot of it. Kid goes to recess on Monday, falls down off the equipment, bumps his head again, second impact syndrome. He's gone. He's no longer with us. So that's why we need to be careful. All right, when to seek urgent care. I mentioned a little bit earlier, we don't even send them to the emergency room anymore. Now we do in these types of situations. We would send kids as young as here and all the way up through high school in these situations. If they get hit, they don't have to be hit in the head. If they get hit or involved in some sort of traumatic event where they run into the wall or slip and fall or something like that, and they have headaches, they keep saying, Miss Smith, my head's getting worse, my head's getting worse, my head's getting worse. That's a problem. We need to go ahead and do that. If they start having seizures, if they act like they're drunk, basically, if they start stumbling around, they say they're okay, and then 10 minutes later, all of a sudden they're doing something funky, that's cause for emergent care. If they say they're okay, and again, this age group is very difficult, before recess, they could be hurting, but now that recess is coming, they feel fine. I understand, I know how that works, okay? You guys have to use your proper gauge there. And we're going to get over these hurdles here in a second. We talk about reporting. But this is what's in emergent. And if you ever at all feel uncomfortable about the situation, you're not medical providers. Call the emergency personnel if you need to call. Okay? At the very least, call the nurse. Have her come check it out. And at most, you call 911. And nobody's ever going to criticize you for calling 911 if you felt uncomfortable about it, especially kids this age. Okay? Nobody is. Here are the signs and symptoms. They come in 4 categories: physical, cognitive, emotional, and sleep are the areas. So this is stuff that basically people will report to you. They'll say, I'm not feeling well, my head hurts, I'm tired, I'm dizzy. Kind of an aside here, can anybody tell me what these look like in terms of besides concussions? If you've been around sports and activity, tell me what this might also be an indication of. Anybody know? I mean, if you don't, that's fine. That's kind of an aside here. These are same symptoms as somebody that's dehydrated, somebody that's malnourished or that has hypoglycemia, and somebody that is going into heat exhaustion. So you can see how somebody like me as an athletic trainer, if I'm on a football field or a soccer field or a basketball, and all of a sudden they're complaining of this, I have to find out if it's because of their head, are they not having enough fluids, they need more food, are they overheating? I need to figure all that out. Makes my job kind of difficult. But you guys don't have to, because normal kids, they should have food, right? They got the free introduced lunch here if they don't get it at home and everything else, so they should be feeding okay. That's another aside about how awful school lunches are. But they should be feeding okay. They should be getting enough fluids. They're young kids. They're pretty resilient individuals. So they shouldn't have these normally. And this is something that would occur like after PE or running in the hallway or out at recess. Mrs. Smith, I bumped my head. Now I have a headache. Or I bumped my head. Now I'm dizzy. Alarm bell should be going off in your head. Ding, ding, ding. Nurse, nurse, nurse. Okay? Emotional. Now this is hilarious because at the high school level, especially with females, I get this every day. So I got to figure out that. I got to kind of weed through that mess too as something goes on. You miss a lot of these signs in school-age kids. The nice thing, and this is a promotion of me, our profession, what Mount Zion has chosen to do, and St. Mary's has been nice to allow us to be here, is that the athletic trainer being there every single day, I understand kids. I know them. I know when there's something wrong. And people always ask me, and we talk about sensors and all these other things to help identify concussions. I'll be flat honest with you. When it comes to sports and the kids that I deal with at the high school level, I can tell you if they're concussed or not within 2 to 5 seconds. That's all I need. Because I know the kids so well. I know how they're acting, I know the way they look, I know their disposition, I know everything else like that. My kids, my personal kids, my 3 kids that I have, I can probably tell you if they're concussed in 2 to 5 seconds as well. And that's something you guys would understand too. If you're around a class all the time, if you've got a kid, I would say my #1 joy in coming from concussion education came down in Shelbyville when we installed this about 5 years ago. I had a teacher come up to me and say, hey, Dustin, I've got this kid who was the class clown. He used to sit in the front of the class and be the class clown and disrupt, and all of a sudden he's now in the back of the class and he's quiet and reserved. There's something wrong with him. I think it might be a concussion. Okay, great, let me take a look at the kid. Took a look at the kid, he's concussed. So I had a teacher catch it. The kid avoided me, he didn't want me to know what was going on, right? He didn't want to misplay, he didn't want to get pulled out of sport. But the teacher caught it because of this stuff. That's awesome. That's stuff that you guys will know and understand, even at this level. You'll see, you guys know when your kids are off. You know when your kids are off, they're having a bad day. So, this is what we do after concussion. We want to avoid strenuous physical activities. We don't want to jostle the brain at all. We don't want to use the brain in any way that's going to help keep it activated. So the analogy I like to use is a snow globe. So if I have a snow globe sitting right here, a nice pretty one, and I pick it up and shake it, I got snow flying everywhere, right? That's the concussion. So what we want to do is we want to set that snow globe down on the shelf and let the flakes settle. Okay? But as the flakes are settling, and the snow globe's still kind of doing a little magic here, and as they're starting to settle, if I ask them to do math questions, I shake the globe a little bit. What happens to those flakes? They keep flying, right? If I ask them to go out to PE, I shake the flakes and they keep flying, right? Likewise, the same thing about sleep. I don't know if you guys remember back in the day, if you ever dealt with head injuries, we used to tell people if they had a head injury to wake them up every hour, every 2 hours, right? Well, why wouldn't we do that now? What are we doing to the snow globe every time I wake it up? I'm shaking the snow globe. We need that all, that's the chemicals and everything to settle down. We need everything to kind of come down. So the big thing, especially as you get a little bit older, is this, video games and screens. Even my son who's in kindergarten loves his screen. If we have kids that are concussed, we need to get them off screens because we're using the brain for input, output, stuff like that. We're shaking the snow globe. We want to make sure we don't do that. Sleep's huge. Sleep, 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 sleep. All right. Kind of reiterating what we did there. In the state of Illinois, not that it matters to you, but when it comes to high school, and this is just good information, in the state of Illinois, only physicians and an athletic trainer can return that person to play by law. So you can't have a nurse practitioner, you can't have a PA say that you're clear, it has to be one of those three people. I am one of those three people, but I will not sign that note. I do not make enough money, I do not have enough malpractice insurance to be sued. I will let these two people take care of that. I'll send it to them and say, hey, listen, you should clear them. You can go ahead and write the note for it, though. I'm not going to. But it's nice to know. And the reason why this is put in is because officials can now remove players from games and say, we think he has a head injury, he or she has a head injury. They cannot return. Unless, of course, I, or the athletic trainer there says, no, they're clear, they can go back in. And in those situations, I'll do that. Another important note to talk about symptoms before we get to do's and don'ts is symptoms will often be delayed in high school kids more so than in this age group. This age group, you'll get symptoms typically right away. It's somewhere about the 11, 12-year-old age range up to about 18, 19 and older is you'll get the delayed. And I think that's something to do with the puberty and the hormones and what's going on. But, and adrenaline. Kids don't really produce a lot of adrenaline at this age quite yet. Their bodies haven't figured out how to do it, thankfully. So the adrenaline masks a lot of stuff. So we'll get kids that get rocked in a game and feel fine. We test them on the sideline, they're great, but the next day I come back and test them and they're a hot mess and they're out. So completely dependent, and just be aware of that. It's okay to do these things here, even though Tylenol is okay. I can't tell you to take it, but I'd stay away from any kind of drugs during this situation, just because. And you can't, this is always a big one here. I actually get parents that push back on this with me, is if they have concussions, say, you can't drive, you're not supposed to drive. Well, how are they supposed to get to and from school? I don't know how to do it when they were in 2nd and 3rd grade. Bus? I don't know, did you have to take them? Figure it out for a week, it's not that big of a deal. That type of thing. What we found out though, what's changed quite a bit, actually in the last year or two, is that we used to send you home, if you had a concussion, we'd say you can't do anything until all your symptoms are gone. Go home. Stay away from everything until your symptoms go away. Well, that would take a while. And we are also learning that one of the biggest drawbacks of that was isolation, which in turn made it, you have problems with fatigue and anxiety and depression, which prolonged recovery. So now we actually let you go back, we actually get to a PE class, you walk around and stuff like that, so you're still part of things. I'm trying to get done here, we're getting close. Support systems is big, so we talk about we're sending people back to school now with some issues, because this is, if I take my son, my 5-year-old son, who's a kindergartner and who is a turd, hates not coming to school. He hates not coming to school, hates it. So when we do that with concussion, we've learned that's been a problem. So we try and put them back to school as long as everything symptom-wise stays okay. Return to learn. So this is our school, this is what we need to know. Return to learn. There should be a handout Ms. Kelly has, if you don't have it here, about our return to learn policy. Basically what that is a stepwise progression for somebody to return to school. And it starts with full academic accommodations. Okay? They don't need a 504 for this, they don't need any of that stuff. It's a full academic accommodations, allowing them to have reduced screen time, help on quizzes if it needs to be verbal rather than written, or reducing workload, period, until symptoms. And then it goes all the way up to full release. A person could zip through that entirely in one day, or it could take them weeks to get through that. It doesn't matter, but make sure you see that if you got any questions. What we need to know and understand, the take-home point of this entire message here is, if you see or hear of somebody sustaining a possible concussion, meaning they got hit, they're reporting being dizzy, headache, or anything else like that, they have a massive knot on their head, something has occurred to create that situation, you need to report that to the nurse. We can't keep that quiet, all right? We have to report to the nurse, and the nurse then will have to make the decision to tell the parents. And the nurse probably will make the decision to tell the parents. It takes that liability off your hands. In today's day and age, because concussions are such a big deal and in the news, if Johnny or Sally were to be hit in the head at PE, and they tell their parents they told the PE teacher, and they did nothing about it, guess what? Trouble, trouble, trouble. So at least the PE teacher says, hey, listen, yeah, I told the nurse. The nurse determined it wasn't, is or isn't, no, that type of situation, right? So take that off your hands, okay? So just report it. And pay attention to the rest of this stuff too, all right? We talked about that a little bit, about knowing your kids. Academic impact, and I know Ms. Smith sees this a lot more than other people, but when you have to just be common sense here. If a kid's had a concussion, your first grader here has had a concussion, the note came back that they had a concussion or whatever else, they're probably going to take a little bit longer to do stuff than they would other people. Or they may get on the screens and all of a sudden have to put their head down because it hurts. Be aware of that. Don't force them into that situation. See if you can make adjustments. And you don't need to write 504s for that stuff. That's return to sports and rec. That has nothing to do with you guys. So administration and policies in schools. This is why we're doing this. Illinois State Bill number 7 was signed. It was approved 2 years ago, signed this past beginning of school year. And basically we have to have a return to learn program on file, which we do, which you can get from Mrs. Kelly. We have to have a return to play protocol, which we do, which you can get from Mrs. Kelly if you're interested in that. And we have to disseminate the information to the staff on a yearly basis, which we're doing right now. All that does is make sure that we're all up cognitive speed on the guidelines and there's no confusion, all right? So if I see him and I say, well, since there's 40 different definitions of concussions, it wasn't a concussion, but yes it was. We're all on the same page. We all now know in Mount Zion that any disruption of normal brain activity after a traumatic event equals concussion. We all know that here now, okay? We've all been taught that. Academics is the #1 priority. That's changed. It used to be sports the #1 priority, which we thought was silly for the longest time, so I helped, along with others, lobby to make academics the #1 pushback, or get back to, before sports and anything else. Concussion oversight team was the other part of that, and this is who the district concussion oversight team is right here. So if you have any questions, you can ask any of us. I will tell you that if you ask anybody between here and probably here, they'll tell you to ask this guy here, which is me. I'm easily reachable by email in district. You can find it. These people, though, as Julie's your building rep, if you have any questions or concerns or something you want feedback-wise, please give it to her. This is working, not working, it's great, thank you, no thank you, this is stupid, whatever, it doesn't matter, we'll take anything. Follow-up care. This is when we start worrying about things if they take longer than 2 to 3 weeks. We're learning now if it's female not to panic until about 3 weeks out. Males, if it's about 2 weeks, we start to kind of get worried. A month, we're definitely alarm raised. We need to refer it out to somebody else. We actually have an athlete now that's 3 months into dealing with some of his injuries. He's now into his 3rd specialist. So I've been around for 4 years. That's the first one, so that's about right because that happens about 20% of the time, unfortunately. Communicate, big time. Communication is a big thing, and be aware of all the signs and symptoms. So we went over the myths, signs and symptoms, notification, and referral. Okay. When we suspect anything, we notify the parents or the nurse. If we can't get hold of the nurse, we notify the parents. Hey, Sally bumped her head today in recess. She told me she bumped her head. She seems to be fine, but I want you to be aware of it. That's a pretty simple email, right? Not asking you to be a doctor, not asking you to be anything other than the feature you are, a concerned person. They bumped their head. You're letting mom and dad know they bumped their head. Done. You don't have to worry about it no more. Emergency room is when things deteriorate and get out of control. Then we start emergency room. Return to learn. Make sure you see the document that we have on file for that. It should be on a shared file somewhere. Pretty sure. Return to play doesn't really concern this building. There's no more concussions than there were 10, 15, 20 years ago. We just see them better now. We're actually looking for them. This is what we talked about. The mishandling of concussions causes a lot of this stuff here. And there's no such thing as getting your bell rung or minor concussion. So one of my biggest pet peeves, and I like saying this towards the end to kind of lighten things up because you guys have been here and you've done a good job listening, is that you hear people say, well, they had a minor concussion. Oh, it's just a minor concussion. Well, ladies, have you ever been mildly pregnant? No, you haven't. You either are or you aren't, right? So There's no such thing as mild concussion. You're either concussed or you're not concussed. No such thing as getting your bell rung. And there's the resources, and I am off to any questions, concerns, comments, anything you got. 25 minutes. I hope that was. I didn't fly through that too much tonight.